Okay. Hi, Christopher. Lisa, I still have a very strong reaction of anger and pain when I see my dad and his girlfriend when I am there, and it seems like there is no way out. I am looking for an apartment, but it's not easy with this mindset. Please speak slowly because of English. Thank you. Well, thanks, Christopher, for asking me to speak slowly. I am sorry, I get speedy and excited. God, I'm feeling so much love. It's just my thing to speak. Yes, okay. Back to the problem. I can't really say so much on what's going on in you because I'm not even sure if we've met before, Christopher. And if we have, I haven't even got a photo to try and read your face. I have to do it totally blind, just this blue box with words in it. I can try to go into it with you. Anger in its positive, so when it's working positively, it's action. It's making things happen. Like sometimes when I'm doing talks and if I get anger come up, I can be really firm with someone and it can really shift the energy and it can be really beautiful. My anger in the negative tends to stem from, and I get anger in the negative now, it tends to stem from when I haven't asserted boundaries correctly with people and I've given too much, and then I get angry in the negative, and that also can be productive and change things, but that's a different anger from the anger in the positive. It can be a bit rude and aggressive and not so productive. And when I was younger, I used to get another thing, and this doesn't really happen anymore at all, is I used to get this rage, this anger that would be so big that would go on for a good couple of hours, maybe even days, and I would really be stuck in it and believe that it was true and that somebody had done something really terrible to me. And I would really like act out negative anger, like get into shouting matches with that person or be really not say nice things to them. I would say not very nice things to them. Whereas now if I get into the negative anger, it passes very quickly and I tend to be able to stop it almost instantly. If they said stop, I would be able to stop it, whereas the other one was very wild, and that doesn't seem to arise anymore. And so with your anger, there's different things that it could be. I know why that wild anger used to happen, and that was from seeking and an unconsciousness of, actually it was unconsciousness of boundaries being crossed. So now I'm very conscious of boundaries being crossed, but then I had no idea of that language, and that would arise from unconsciousness of boundaries being crossed and an identification with that anger and that rage and a real belief in the thoughts that were saying the other person had done something terrible to me. So this is just describing my psychology. So in your psychology, more than likely, that anger is coming from not understanding the human side of you, not understanding what it is you want, not understanding what it is you need. Those two dynamics. And then the identification with that anger. So a belief that your dad has really wronged you, but you might not even be really conscious of the thoughts that he's really wronged you. You might just feel this anger towards him. So it's the identification plus with an unconsciousness. It's very, on the human level, understanding what you want is a very important dynamic in your life. A lot of us go through life not understanding what you want. I'm not saying you'll always be aware of what you want. You know, when you're rolling around laughing with friends or watching TV or walking your dog, you might not be aware of what you want in that moment. But in general, it's good to keep a check on what is it that I want from this situation. What is it that you want and need from your living situation and your dad? And what is it that you're not getting? And it could be that you feel disrespected, you feel they're not respecting you, they don't give you space. There's all types of things that could be happening. And your job is to sit on a meditation cushion or on your bed, or maybe on a meditation cushion just to make a point of it, and examine these things, like write it out, get to know yourself. Don't sit and watch non-duality teachers and expect them to do for you. Work it out, what's going on inside of you. And get used to this mentality of understanding human dynamics and the psychology of human dynamics. It's very important, like what you're playing, what's going wrong in your games. Like for you to, the main problem is identification, that who you are is this moment. But why you're experiencing so much pain is that you don't understand yourself. You're living in a lie, so you're living in thoughts that aren't being truthful. You're living in believing thoughts that aren't true. And then you're living in a timeline. And all of that condensed together makes your body feel uncomfortable and stuck and unable to change. And you just listen to non-duality, listen to that who you are is presence, but also understand what you're playing on the human level. When you don't understand it or are really unconscious, then it just plays as truth. It just plays at truth that he's an asshole. Just plays at truth that, like when you come in front of his girlfriend, you feel like snapping at her. Like, so she says something and there's like, and we're fascinating. So in these movies I've been watching, there's quite a few of them that it seems like the men, they're from very poor, disadvantaged backgrounds, and it was all men, and a lot of them had been sexually abused. And what they basically did, the reason that they're on death row, I'm a killer and I'm on death row. The reason that they're on death row is because they really, I'm not excusing what they did. I'm not making out they're the victim, but I mean, it's complicated. It's not so easy. Like, I think that also the problem is when you've done something like kill somebody, is it's easy to go to past experiences to make excuses as well. But from what I can see, there is a pattern where these men have just gone and shot and killed something similar to what they were sexually abused by. That is the unconscious. Now, if I think actually when watching this program, if America didn't have guns, those killings, quite a few of those killings wouldn't have happened. It's that they had the gun there and they just snapped, you know. And I mean, I don't know, maybe they'd have been walking around with knives and they would have snapped and stabbed the person. But I think America's got a different, like in Europe, I don't think we're allowed to walk around with knives, but I think in America you're allowed to walk around with a gun. Like, I don't think that I'm allowed to put a knife in my bag and walk around the streets with it. I think if I get pulled over by the police, I would be charged with an offence. And I mean, obviously, if you've just gone and bought yourself a new knife for your kitchen, then you're allowed. But I don't think you're allowed to sort of like walk around with a knife in your back pocket. But it seems in America, you're like, oh yeah, I'm allowed to walk around with a gun. And I'm sure, though, that maybe they would have carried knives. But anyway, so that's psychology. That's the unconscious. Is that if there's something that's traumatized you, then there's different responses that you can have to it. But often, most humans are really unconscious of that, and they're just acting out again and again. So a person that's not going to go out and shoot someone in their head, who is, say, constantly put down by their dad, maybe their dynamic is to constantly put down anyone that's like their dad, constantly be nasty to that, or bully that type of energy, or be afraid, whatever. And that's that's fine. That's painful. But when you're identified with it, it's very uncomfortable, because then it adds in seeking, that your identity is based on that as well, and you're seeking to play that game, and you believe that, not consciously, but at some point, you're going to find home by bullying someone else or by making someone else small, and it makes it 10 times more intense. But that's roughly psychology, the psychology of what seems to happen to us. And I'm so super aware of Lisa's dynamics, but she still acts them out. She's still got a tendency towards these dynamics that were conditioned in me since very young childhood. But there's a great awareness of them, so I can often see them and just move away from them or recondition myself. And maybe one day they'll change, but maybe they don't. The real suffering, though, is identifying with them. Identifying and being unconscious of them is like really huge suffering. To have a more balanced personality that you're identified with is a lot more bearable than somebody you're totally unconscious of and is acting out all kinds of crap with all types of humans and getting themselves in all sorts of situations and dramas, and being unconscious of it and thinking the world is really awful because of it all, and then being identified with that, is a lot worse than a person that's quite aware of themselves and quite balanced. You still feel like you're not at home, but it's not really extreme. You've more balance, pleasurable versus pain feelings. So what a lot of spiritual traditions seem to teach is they teach the Advaita side, that you are nobody, that who you are is this presence. But they also try to relax the person to an extent and make it more socially adjusted and psychologically adjusted. And so the person has a more healthy relationship with the world. Man, I can talk.